we do not conduct any change without A/B testing it, because the impact can be very big, and it can be very big on the positive side or on the negative side. And this is exactly why we want to make sure that we A/B test everything.
Welcome to the Marketing Academy podcast by GCMO, where in every episode we sit down with a marketing expert to deep dive into a hot topic shaping the industry. I'm Yitzi Tenenbaum. Let's get started. Welcome to the Marketing Academy podcast by GCMO, the podcast where every episode we dive into a different marketing topic. I'm Yitzi Tenenbaum, part of the product marketing team at Palo Alto Networks. Now, all marketers run tests, usually different types of A/B testing. In this episode, we'll discuss testing. We'll look at building a test, executing and measuring a successful test. My guest today is Tal Mishaly, Director of Product Growth at Guardio. Tal, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So give us a quick overview of Tal personal, of Tal career. Who are you?
Okay, so I'm Tal. I live in Jaffa. I'm with my wife, my two small kids, and my dog, who all of them I love very much. Professionally, I've been around this industry for around 12 or more years, doing in different positions, content creation, editing, social networks many years ago, UX design, product management, and product marketing. In the past few years, I've been leading the product growth at Guardio, which is a B2C cybersecurity company. I'll say a bit more about it in a second. But I think that professionally, to refer to the topic that we're here to discuss today, I've been mostly around B2C companies working in that field where growth and product marketing have a very specific and clear business value that it brings to those companies, because creating experiences, working on even copy, texts, design, assets, flows is all very, very clear how improving that and optimizing that will contribute to the business goals and metrics that we want to keep improving. Again, we'll discuss some of these things today, but I think it can be very relevant and practical for B2B companies as well. But I think that giving examples and basing methodologies on B2C and the way that optimization is done there can be just a very good lesson to learn from.
I think specifically for B2C, the impact is a lot larger, right? You move a button from here to here, and it'll change by 18,000 customers or users. In B2B, you can do a ton of things, and you'll change 15% of your customer base, but those 15% may be 15 customers. So I think just the numbers and the sample are so much bigger, so every small change will have a bigger absolute number impact.
Yes, so it's debatable because obviously in B2B, you can, you know how they say that the S&P 500 is obviously consists of 500 companies, but maybe 80% of it is covered by the top 10 shared value of these companies. So in every B2B company, I think the customer base is not evenly spread out. So it may be that you make an impact on 10 of your clients, but it's super impactful for the business. And so I give a lot of significance to any change you make, specifically to big clients, big customers. I think the methodology should be a bit different because A/B testing a smaller number of high impact customers is different. However, if you manage to break down your processes, your sales processes, when you into funnels, when you sell to enterprise companies, you may also find the ways to optimize each and every step and make a big impact on the future customers you'll have. Because it's obviously sales processes mostly evolve around your future income and not the existing one.
Now, we'll definitely dive into the different, how do we test the different levels of the business, the sales, the marketing, the post-sale, the usage, the product. But I do want to double click for a second on product growth. I think that's a role that is very unique in our ecosystem. It's growing quickly. I was fortunate enough to be exposed to a very talented product growth team at my time at Meta, who they led a lot of the tests, led by Danya Schwartz, who is amazing, and Itai Rishpan and some amazing people. They're part of that product growth team. So what is product growth? Help us define that.
Okay, so first of all, it's just very similar to many of the roles in our new industry, new world that we're all part of. I think it changes between companies. You know, there's a difference between a product growth person in one company versus the other. If the company is good and professional and deep enough, there should be, or there is in most cases, a difference in the actual role between two people in the same company, or even two people in the same team. So at Guardio, it's different. First of all, just to give context, Guardio is a B2C cybersecurity company, meaning that we have a very easy to consume solution that will provide an extra needed layer of security on top of your day-to-day interactions with digital devices. But when we refer to SaaS products, it's a bit more complicated because we need product marketing here mixed into this cocktail of value that we communicate. Because when you purchase a t-shirt, it's very easy. You know what you're buying, you know why you need it, or you probably don't need it, you probably want it, but you know why you want it, and you know if you need it, and then you decide to buy. But no one wakes up in the morning with a deep, very significant urge to purchase an online security tool. It doesn't happen, unfortunately.
Right.
And since there's no craving for such a product, we need to create it. And when we create it, we need to create the right funnels that will build the intent, starting from an ad on any advertising platform, Google, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever. And starting in this ad, video, still image, text, and all the way to purchasing and post-purchasing and retention, of course, and so on, we need to optimize it. And our way to optimize it is constantly, as we believe, improving the funnel by communicating the value in a better way. The value can be the value of the product, of a specific feature, creating more trust in our, for instance, payment methods. You know, every e-commerce site or SaaS product has this list of icons that they show to assure you that your payment is safe, that no one will steal your credit card, and so on. So adding these elements along the way should help you reach the decision of purchasing the product and feeling safe to do it and feel like you're convinced and that you know that you want it. To connect to the title you gave to this episode, we do not conduct any change without A/B testing it, because the impact can be very big, and it can be very big on the positive side or on the negative side. And this is exactly why we want to make sure that we A/B test everything. By the way, sometimes there is less danger that the change you are making can harm the purchase funnel. Okay? Let's say, for instance, just an example, let's say after you completed your purchase at the t-shirt shop you chose, after you completed the purchase, they offer you a complimentary whatever 50% discount on another t-shirt.
Right.
Okay? So the risk of you sending back the first t-shirt is very low, and there's almost entirely only an upside. Are we still going to test it? My approach is yes, because we want to monitor and make sure we know the impact of the work that we do. Okay? It's important for us as a team to know that the incremental improvements that we make are documented. And let's say at some point we will look back and look for the places that improved the purchase funnel or made it worse. We want each and every one of them to be exclusive, because if they are not, it will be very hard to track. So I think the summary of all of that will be you A/B test everything.
You A/B test everything, but I think there's another point that you mentioned is you want to isolate the test.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that the change happened because of what you did and not because of a second factor.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I know because I've been speaking to people, around the industry in different events or interactions that I had, and I think I have a slightly different approach, and I think the main reason for it, for this approach, is due to my background in product marketing. Okay, because A/B tests, if you speak to an analyst, it has to be 100% sterile. Okay, if we change the title, we cannot also change the subtitle, because then we will not be able to, like you said, to isolate the reason why something changed. However, in product marketing, one of the most important pillars of our work is messaging. And for me, taking this idea into A/B tests, as an agenda, I'm okay with A/B testing messaging. So if I say I want to test the messaging of one product value versus another product value, if I need to make a change in the same screen, in the title and subtitle and CTA, but they all refer to the same product value and the same messaging, it will help me measure or really test my hypothesis. Because if I only change the subtitle, maybe the change that I made, maybe my hypothesis was not represented in the screen strongly enough for it to be tested. So for me, I don't mind making 3 changes in the same page if they all you can fold all of them under one headline, which is we're testing this messaging. It helps us learn things faster, and it helps us make the hypothesis very, very very, very clear. If it failed, we know we're looking for something in a different direction. So we can learn faster from the test itself, because it will probably win or lose more significantly than another change. If it was too small, we may see a tie ranking, similar results. But not only that, it will also help us learn faster the bigger process of learning which messaging we should aim to.
Right. So where do the ideas come from when you decide to run a test about moving a button or shortening a process or giving a discount, or where does the idea originate from to run this test?
It's a good question. So first of all, I have to say that I'm very lucky to work with the most talented people I know, whether it's my colleagues, my managers, or my team that I manage. They're talented people. You have to hire right in order to have fun at work. And having fun is mostly professional when we discuss work, you know. I can have great friends who are fun to be with, but will not be good partners at my job. So at work, you have to have talented people. When you have talented people, smart people, it's everything becomes easier, and my team is amazing. Really, I have nothing. I mean, this alone is enough. Okay. Now that I gave credit to everyone I need to, because they deserve it, I can answer your question finally. I always say that creativity where we work doesn't originate in the place that people imagine, okay? When you think about creativity, if you close your eyes and look for the Shutterstock image that symbolizes creativity, you will think of many colors and, I don't know, a painter or an artist or whatever, imagination. When you have data, being creative is very, very easy. It may seem a bit less, not as sexy or not as colorful, but I think restrictions and numbers create creativity in the most intuitive way, okay? First of all, if the leadership of the company or of the team or whatever define the goal well enough, it will be very easy to imagine the solutions or the ways to get there, okay? If the KPI you want to improve is not well defined, it will be very hard to move in any direction because the direction is not clear. So this is one thing. You have to set very clear goals. Once you have KPIs and they're set and you know how to measure them and you have a dashboard that shows the number that you want to measure, you can follow the differences, just like I described before about changes we're making and that we want to isolate them to monitor our work. Once you have the numbers, you can start moving. Then, once you see numbers moving, researching the reasons is much easier than if you didn't have a very clear image of the numbers and the KPIs. So when you see the numbers moving, whether improving or deteriorating, you know, moving forward or back, you can very easily find within you the solutions. If the funnel as a funnel is built clearly enough, you will see a drop in a step. This already does 80% of the job because now you know what you need to improve. Then you need to think of the tools that you have. Do I have a product value I can communicate? Is this a place around the topic of the whatever screen in the flow is the price? Maybe I need to do something about the pricing. Maybe I need to do something about, like I said before, making users feel like it's safe to pay. If the drop is in the payment page, doesn't necessarily mean the problem is with the price. Maybe they didn't arrive at the payment page with an intent strong enough to make them go through the payment page. So it's what I call getting a little push in the bum, right? Because if the push was strong enough and you had enough intent built before, you will more easily go through the next steps, including paying, pricing, upsell, whatever. But if the push wasn't strong enough, so maybe you need to go 2 steps back and press harder on some value in order to help users go through another page. So I think creativity comes from the data, comes from, I call it management, but I think setting clear KPIs. And just to complete this and what I said about having talented people, smart people, I think you need to have sensitive people, because for me, creativity, I studied psychology in university, okay? And a lot of this is psychology. I didn't make it up. There were psychologists before me who have books that describe these, sales methods and so on. But I think if you're sensitive enough to have empathy to the user's thoughts and feelings about what's missing for them at some point, you will find the solutions. And that's creativity. Doesn't matter that it doesn't have many colors or...
No, that's a very fair point, that you want to use the data, look at the data, and also probably previous tests. Changes that you made will then influence, hey, if this works, let me try this, or let me take it a step further. So that makes a lot of sense. But I want to do a test. I decided I have the idea I want to run a test. Can you walk us through how to build a test? What do those stages look like, from the kind of idea, building the hypothesis, choosing the audience? Could you just walk us through the main bullet points? I'm sure you could talk about it for hours, but walk us through what that would look like, so we could hopefully replicate some of those main steps in our businesses.
So, basic recipe for an A/B test. You have to have at least 2 variants. One of them is the original or the control group, which we do not make any changes in the experience. That's the basic. Then there's variant or variants, okay? Depends on amount of traffic that you have, hypothesis, etc. Let's say you have one variant that you're testing. That's what usually we call B. That's why it's called an A/B test. A is the basic, which starts with a B, obviously, but A is the original and B is the new variant. And on group B, we manipulate it. We manipulate the experience, and then we want to measure whether it made a difference. Very, very, very basic statistics is that you conduct a statistical test in order to measure, in order to monitor if 2 groups you defined are in fact statistically different from each other. Okay, and this is a t-test or a z-test or whatever you choose. We'll not go into it right now, but you run the test, meaning you bring people, users, traffic, whatever you want to call it, inside the test. This is the sample group. It should split into the 2 groups randomly, the same size more or less. Usually it's around 50-50. And then if we randomly split the groups, we have 2 equal groups going through different experiences, and we want to see if group B, the new variant, is performing similar or better or worse to group A. This is a basic test. In order to do that, you have to create the manipulation. Like we said before, it has to be clear, it has to be significant, and it has to be sterile, as sterile as you chose. Okay, like I said before.
Right. Quick question on that. How big does the audience have to be? I think we always want to keep it as small as possible to not break too much. Mm-hmm. What's the absolute, how do you choose the size of your sample?
So the smaller the group, the bigger the difference has to be. There are rules of thumb about sizes of groups, but again, it depends. if you do sales processes, you also get a feeling or a hunch from the qualitative data that you collect, because you conduct phone calls, you hear feedback, and so on. And then turning this qualitative data into numbers is something that you need to accumulate. It needs to pile up, and eventually you'll have enough, a sample size big enough to reach some sort of decision. I want to be very clear. It will not be a statistical significance like in a proper A/B test that has thousands of people in every bucket, thousands at least. In some cases, hundreds is enough, but thousands usually at least. But it can still be okay. In B2C, it's easier. Okay, you have a big audiences. In A/B tests that we conduct, we usually start reaching decisions or even acknowledging a trend when we have in the high numbers of hundreds of users. Okay, 800, 900 in every group are starting to be good enough for us to say, okay, there's a trend. I would want thousands of people in every group, and as the test becomes more sensitive, I would want to reach a larger group, right? It makes sense. For me as an agenda, if I have a very positive trend in an A/B test, it will not be good enough for me in order to say it's good enough, let's merge it. It made an improvement and we're happy. But if we see a very strong negative trend, I may not want to sacrifice my traffic, my business matrix, in order to reach a larger sample size. I may say, you know what, I get the sense of it. It may change, right? It may flip. We may have, since the sample size is not big enough, tomorrow is a new day. We'll get a new audience. Maybe the results will change. Then you have to ask yourself how patient you are in order to live with damaging your conversion rate, for example. Before you close the test and say, okay, I'm ready for another iteration. For me, I decide to close tests. I decide they were bad faster than I decide they're good. Even though statistically, it's not the right thing, right? It's not the playbook thing to do. And because if you need a sample size of X users, that's what you need. But I have less patience, and I say if the test was well defined, we can learn from the negative trend and move on to the next iteration.
Right. So there's kind of the risk versus the reward, the test versus kind of what you're giving up to check it out. So we ran the test. We have the two versions. It's running for the amount of days that we decide. You spoke about kind of stopping and starting. How do I measure it? And what's cool, I think, about, especially in the SaaS world, we're constantly testing it, right? The data is changing in real time. So how do I measure a test? When do I start? I know when to start. When do I finish a test? When do I say that it's enough? I have the data I need. How do I make sure I'm looking at the right indicators and data? Talk a little bit about just measurement of tests.
Sure. So just one thing I need to complete from the last sentence, okay? Because it has a lot to do with measuring.
Okay.
Just like I said, that groups need to be different enough, mm-hmm. and obviously need to be more different as the groups are smaller. Same thing I believe about the different variants, okay? If the variants are not different enough, it will be very hard to measure, because then it will be very hard for us to decide is the change random or not. Now, statistics can help in that, right? Because if the change is statistically significant, so it's not random, that's how it works. But for me, I'd rather create a variant that is very, very, very different than the original. If it's very different, that's what I always say to my team, okay? If the variants are not very different, what will we learn if the test won or lost, okay? If we know how to answer this question, the variants are different enough, okay? By the way, when the variants are different enough, it will be much more fun to keep refreshing the data of the results of the tests, right? Because we actually brought two agendas clashing head to head, fighting for the win. And we actually have something we really believe in versus something else, someone else really believes in, and now we can test it.
So you would take two extremes.
Extremes.
And then if you learn that one is better, and then you would maybe kind of move them closer to find that like sweet spot.
So if the basic version that we have now in production in the air is on the right-hand side, I would want something on really far on the right-hand side to measure against it. Now, if it won, I know that my next iteration needs to be somewhere between the middle and the right-hand side. And if it lost, I know that the next iteration I run needs to be somewhere between the middle and the left-hand side. And then it kind of moves until the point that it reaches balance in the middle, and then we have the new version. It may take 5, 6, or 10 iterations, but we have the new version. And then I need a totally new hypothesis that will again be very extremely different than what we now have. And then we do this motion again, and we have a new version, and then we need to put another hypothesis to be very far away. And so creativity comes into hand. Now about measuring. First of all, again, something that I learned along the way, making sure we have the right KPIs. That first of all, we need to know what the KPI that we want to measure is. It's not very easy, even though it sounds very, very basic, but we have to know. Okay, not always the answer is conversion rate. Sometimes it's the different products that you sell, or average revenue per user, or whatever KPI it is that you're measuring. Sometimes it's something that needs to impact the retention over time, and then it takes more time to measure it. But maybe, just for example, which is my segue for the second bullet point I have in my head, maybe if we're measuring retention over time, we have an indicator that is much closer to us, that is a proxy metric for the retention over time. And then it's enough for us to measure that because it will give us the answer to our questions much faster. Maybe I don't want to run a test and then bring users into the cohort of the test and then wait 2 weeks or 30 days or whatever you're measuring in retention in order to get my conclusion. Maybe I can say that whenever the retention in day 30 is higher, we already see it in day number 5. So maybe my metric that I need to optimize for in this test is retention day 5, and then I can reach a decision in 5 days rather, or maybe 5 days plus a few days of traffic going into the test. So let's say I have traffic of 3 days plus reaching all of them to day 5, so it's 8 days. So I can reach a result in 8 days instead of waiting 33 days of the 30 days plus the 3. Okay, so like I said, you need to know what the KPI is. You need to know exactly what you're looking for, but then you have to make sure that you have the dashboard or the event in your database that describes it. Because if you don't have it, so for me, it's equal to not having the design ready. You will not go live without with a page that is not designed or written or developed. And exactly in the same way, even though sometimes it's tempting, you will not go live with the test if the dashboard to measure it is not ready. Okay, it's an integral part of the test, and having a test live in the air and our eyes covered and not being able to see the results is, for me, is like not having a test.
It's a waste of time. Yeah.
Waste of time, waste of money, 2 times, because once we're buying traffic that we are currently not really testing because we don't know, we're blindfolded. And second, we may be hurting the business. So we may be losing money again. So having a way to measure the test is critical.
Right. It's all about, the reason we do a test is to see the results. So if we can see the results, then why are we doing a test at all? What are the main pitfalls? What are the main mistakes? Because I think a lot of our listeners, kind of like me, we all run different versions of tests. Let it be, which social media is right to invest in, or we'll send out multiple emails to see which email works. So I think a lot of us do tests, but are not nearly as experienced as you are. What are some good or what are some pitfalls? What are some mistakes that you see kind of regular marketers making that we should, next time we do a test, we should be a little smarter about?
So I think I mentioned a few of these, right?
You did.
Yeah. So first of all, you have to create variants that will be different enough from the original. Okay, this is something I see very commonly happen. That the 2 versions of the test are not very different.
Right.
Like you said before, that not being able to measure a test or see the results is a waste of time. For me, the worst way to waste time is to have an A/B test that will be even in the results. Okay, because we did nothing, and doing nothing is the opposite of doing something. So I think first of all, you have to be bold enough to run a version that is different. And then all the cliches come in very handy, because if you are bold enough and you test something very extreme, so if you fail fast. It's just a very intuitive result of doing that. And then you don't have to decide to fail fast. You will just see the numbers and see that you failed fast, and you will be ready for another iteration.
And you probably have to be also okay with failure. I think a lot of us are afraid. Like, it's okay and it's even good to run a test and fail.
First of all, the very, very big majority of A/B tests fail, okay? If they don't, you're not testing fast enough, okay? If it takes you 2 weeks to decide on the messaging and the design for an A/B test, in those 2 weeks, you could have run 3 or 4 tests that would have taught you what you are busy arguing about in meetings in the meeting room. Okay, you can test it. It's very easy. It creates much better relationships because you don't argue anymore. You just let the numbers argue themselves, and you just reach wiser decisions faster. So you need to have bold decisions and very extreme versions or variants. Okay, what you said about being okay with failure is, as I believe, should be one of the first bullet points in every job description. Okay, and I already wrote that before sometime in some forum that we had a discussion about it. It's one of the most important things I look for when I hire people, okay? And for us in the team and at Guardio, and I'm very proud of that, it's very common to say, oh my God, we were so stupid. It really sucked, and now we have to do something new and different, okay? But if we... so no one is upset or no one should be upset with a growth marketer, growth product manager, whatever, if an A/B test fails. For me, I'm more upset with my team if we want, or if someone on the team wants to launch a test that is not bold enough, because then we can waste time. If we lost a test that was defined well enough, we can measure it, and the variants are interesting enough, so we can fail. It's okay. But if we didn't do that, we may waste our time and money. And so it's very, very clear that what we are aiming for is very high risk. And then being willing to fail is a must on the job. It's not just something nice to say. It's a must on the job. Okay, and hopefully, if some people are afraid of failing, they can quote me if I'm a good enough of a person to quote, and tell that to the people around them who make the environment one that is maybe makes you afraid to fail. Okay, because it's just not a good environment for A/B testing. So that's one thing. That's a pitfall that we spoke about.
And I think, by the way, it's something that managers really need to take into consideration. You need to create an environment that is okay to fail. And you almost encourage people to take risks and understand that taking big risks, and I think in marketing, and good marketers today take those big risks. So you need to make sure that your employees are okay to make those risks and they're not afraid to fail. If you give a failure a spotlight and you kind of give them a hard time, your employees won't take risks, and then your marketing will just be boring.
Yeah. But we went a bit off rails to a discussion about personas. Okay,
that's true.
Which is interesting, but I think we can wrap it inside of a very technical, professional discussion. Because if you are afraid of failing, it means that maybe somewhere in your heart or in your mind, you believe that you should win an A/B test on the first attempt, which, as my experience taught me, is not possible. Sometimes it takes 2, 3. Some of the tests we did took 12 or 13 or 14 attempts, and for me, it's all part of the same test. We try to create products that are dynamic enough for us to be able to iterate them without going full cycles of development or design over and over again. If you have something dynamic, you can move the Lego parts on top of it, and then you can run 10 A/B tests or 10 iterations within a short period of time with no dependencies, and it's very easy to move. But believing that if we just have one more discussion or one more iteration on design or a more complex dev solution, you will probably find yourself wasting time. The right thing to do is understand that you need those 5 or 6 iterations. So failing is just part of the way of getting to reaching your goal. That's it. It's part of the test. It's very, very, for me, it makes sense.
No, it definitely, I think you worded it well. It's part of the process. It needs to be baked into your testing process. Now, sadly, we're running towards the end of this episode, which has been super interesting. But I feel like you have great experience and you've done some really cool tests. Maybe as kind of the dessert for this episode, can you talk about a test that you did that was really cool, that surprised you, that you built in a kind of unique way, maybe?
As product growth managers, we like the holy grail of optimization is conversion rate. This is like the main business impact that we can make. This and the average order value, or ARPU, or whatever you call it, right? The tiers, the amount that you pay, and the percentage of people who actually pay is like optimizing the business in the best way you can on our end. I think what surprised me is, I'm going a few years back in my mind here, okay, is something that I tried before, or I tried once, that contradicted like the intuition of funnel optimization. Okay, because in funnels, you always try to make the buttons more approachable, and you try to make them shorter, and you try to give up or erase steps of the funnel that are not necessary. We did a lot of these tests, and were able to optimize the funnel in many aspects, okay, and improve the conversion rate and so on. At some point, we understood that maybe the value that we think we're communicating is not clear enough. So after conducting a few tests on sharpening the wording and iterating it again and again and again, we said, you know what? Why not add a step to the funnel? Add one more step to the funnel that will make it longer, will add friction, but maybe will be what we call a strainer, okay? It will make maybe a bit less people go through it because you added a step and added friction, but the people who will go through it, like through a strainer, will be much more now quality or quality leads or ready to purchase users than the others. And it was, I think, it was now already 3 years ago maybe, that I saw this theory come into life, that sometimes adding steps to a funnel may serve the funnel better than making it shorter.
That is very cool, and it goes back to the idea of coming up with good ideas for a test, and probably that's the cornerstone of a test, is just making sure that you have that out-of-the-box and good idea.
I agree. Again, I think that if you're you live the funnel and you know the data front and back well enough, the out of the box ideas are right there all the time. You just need to look for it in the dashboards.
Okay, Tal, so much to think about. A lot of good tips for, I think, people who don't do this full time. We could take some of the ideas they spoke about of building a test, measuring a test, making sure that it's right. So thank you so much for your time. Super, super interesting. Before we go, I want to thank our producer, Rotem Simon. I want to thank our editor who makes us look good, Naor Naftali. I want to thank our host for today, Google for Startups. If you happen to have a startup, Google is a great host for you to get mentorship, be part of a community, and get a great workspace to work out of. So check out Google for Startups. Tal, thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you.